Hey everyone! Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight into the hidden and honestly super fascinating world of how living things interact in an ecosystem. Nature usually looks pretty peaceful, right? But just under the surface, there is this wild web of teamwork, trickery, and pure survival happening literally every single second.
Have you ever wondered how different organisms actually help, use, or even totally depend on each other? Just imagine walking through a massive, bustling forest. It kind of seems like every bird, bug, or plant is just doing its own solo thing. But in reality, no. No organism lives completely alone. They form these special, sometimes really surprising relationships just to survive. And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. All right, Section 1. What is symbiosis? Let's figure out the rulebook for how nature actually works.
So, here's the deal. Symbiosis is a close, long-term relationship between organisms of totally different species, where at least one of them gets a benefit. We're not talking about two animals just randomly bumping into each other once. These are long-term, ongoing connections. It's incredibly common, and as we're going to see, these relationships are absolutely vital for ecosystems to stay balanced and healthy.
Take a look at this. You've got plants, insects, birds, fungi. They are all sharing the exact same space and resources. Scientists call this complex web a biocenosis, which is basically just a fancy word for a community of living things interacting together. It's these symbiotic bonds that act like an invisible glue, holding the entire forest together.
Moving right along to mutualism, everybody wins. I love starting here because it's the ultimate natural teamwork.
You see that big green plus symbol? That's mutualism. Both organisms benefit. Everyone wins. It's a total win-win situation. In fact, these connections can be so incredibly tight that sometimes the species literally can't even survive without each other.
Let's check out some amazing examples of this plus teamwork in action. First up, the classic bee and flower. The bee gets sweet nectar to eat, and in return, the flower gets pollinated. Win-win. Then you've got ladybugs and plants. The ladybug gets to feast on tiny aphids, which actually protects the plant from getting eaten by those pests. Oh, and lichen, that crusty stuff you see on rocks? It's actually a fungus and an alga working together. The fungus provides water, and the alga makes food. We also have mycorrhiza, this crazy underground partnership between fungi and plant roots. And my absolute favorite, cleaner fish. They get a free meal by eating parasites off huge ocean fish, and the big fish gets a premium spa treatment.
So, put your science hats on for a second. Can you think of another example out in the wild where two completely different living things help each other out? Take a second and try to picture a plus relationship from your favorite animals.
All right, next up is commensalism. No harm done. We're shifting from our green win-win setup to a blue theme for something a bit more one-sided.
Check out the math symbol here. It's a +0. In commensalism, one organism absolutely benefits. That's the plus. But the other one? That's the 0. It is neither helped nor harmed. It honestly doesn't really care at all. This is usually a looser connection, where one animal just gets a free ride or a place to live without bothering its host.
And nature has some seriously sneaky survival tricks for this. Look at the remora fish. It literally has a suction cup on its head to stick onto a massive, terrifying shark. The remora gets a free ride and eats the shark's leftovers. The shark, totally unaffected. Or think about birds building nests in trees. It's a super safe home for the bird, and the tree doesn't mind one bit. Same goes for beautiful orchids growing high up on branches to grab better sunlight. Or a hermit crab moving into an empty shell left behind by a sea snail. Even hawks use tall pine trees as the perfect lookout points to hunt, while the tree just stands there.
So when you see animals interacting outside, it's a fun game to play. Who benefits in each example? Who is the plus getting the huge perk, and who is the 0 just going about their day unbothered?
Now for the slightly darker stuff, parasitism, the unfair trade. We're shifting our colors to orange and red, entering a slightly creepier but totally necessary part of survival.
Here we have the +- symbol. In parasitism, one organism, the parasite, benefits, but the other one, the host, is harmed. That's the minus. But here's a really important secret. Parasites usually do not want to actually kill their hosts. Because think about it, if the host dies, the parasite loses its home and its free meals. So they usually just steal what they need, leaving the host alive, but definitely weakened.
These examples are a little gross, but absolutely fascinating. First up, mosquitoes and humans. Yeah, we've all been the minus here. The mosquito gets a meal of our blood, and we get a super itchy bump. Then there's the tapeworm, living right inside an animal's stomach, quietly stealing all the nutrients while the poor host gets sick. Ticks do the same thing to dogs, stealing a blood meal and maybe passing on a disease. And get this, even plants can be parasites. Mistletoe actually jams its roots into another tree to steal its water and minerals. And remember those tiny aphids? When ladybugs aren't around to eat them, they act as parasites, sucking the sap right out of plants and causing them to grow poorly.
Okay, comparing the three types, let's do a quick recap to lock these three big rules of nature into our brains.
Let's put them side by side and think about how close these connections actually are. In mutualism, the plus-plus, they both benefit, and the bond is super tight. Sometimes they literally can't live apart. Commensalism, the plus-zero, is usually a weaker connection, like a bird just borrowing a branch. But then, in parasitism, the plus-minus, the connection gets incredibly close again, because that tricky parasite totally depends on the host to survive.
And the crazy part is, every single one of these has a crucial job. Mutualism boosts survival and literally drives evolution. Commensalism makes sure no space or resource goes to waste. And, no way, even parasitism is important. Those bad guy parasites actually help regulate animal populations, making sure no single species grows completely out of control and eats all the food in the forest. So, why is symbiosis important overall? Let's zoom out from the individual bugs and birds and look at the whole planet. Symbiosis is the hidden engine keeping ecosystems stable. It helps vulnerable organisms survive in really tough conditions. It helps species spread and reproduce. It keeps energy and matter cycling through the food web. And it massively increases the stability of our natural communities. Basically, because everything is leaning on everything else, the entire forest or ocean becomes super strong and resilient. Check out this mind-blowing fact before we wrap up. Remember that underground mycorrhiza partnership we mentioned? Well, about 80%, 8 out of every 10 land plants on Earth form this partnership with fungi. Without those fungi, most of the plants, trees, and crops we see every day literally wouldn't be able to absorb enough water and minerals from the soil. They would just struggle to survive. That is how absolutely crucial this stuff is.
Which brings us to the biggest takeaway. In nature, everything is connected. From a tiny bee hovering over a flower, to a remora catching a ride on a shark, to the invisible fungi under our feet, life on Earth relies on these amazing partnerships. Understanding symbiosis is really the very first step in helping us protect and keep our ecosystems healthy.
Thanks so much for joining me on this wild journey into nature's hidden relationships. I'll leave you with one final thought to keep your scientific curiosity going. Out of all the weird, wonderful, and slightly gross examples we talked about today, what example of symbiosis surprised you the most? Keep an eye out for these connections in your own backyard, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.